The old woman.
Long-time lurker, new-time poster, and foreign. Please bear with me. These are 3 different stories that are all part of one experience, with one especially creepy woman. These incidents happened throughout the span of 14 plus years. Describing the type of neighborhood I lived in will be integral to this story. When I was 6 years old, me and my family, parents, 2 brothers, and grandparents, lived in the ghetto part of the city. It was a poor neighborhood housing several ethnic groups of immigrants. Break-ins, random violence, and drug abuse were common occurrences, so whenever I went out to play with my friends, my parents never let me wander off out of the apartment complex, or out of their line of sight from our apartment window. Moreover, I wasn't allowed to walk to or from school without being accompanied by my family. The school wasn't very far from our house, a 10-minute walk. The way to school passed a big ghetto-ish playground, which I loved, that had a long uphill paved trail leading right to the school. My parents never let me go to the playground alone with my friends, and that really frustrated my little 6-year-old brain. Given the nature of our neighborhood, and me being a girl, I had heard endless speeches about the horrors of wandering off alone outside. Stranger danger and all that jazz. I was a pretty gutsy kid, so I didn't really take my parents' words very seriously. Being a kid, I didn't quite understand why my parents always hovered over me, not letting me be a kid and just go outside or go to school alone when my best friend did so every day. So one day I decided I'd one-up my parents and come back completely alone from school to gain their trust. A mentality of, look at me, I'm a big girl. They worked till late that day. My brother was in high school and my other brother was in the army. I knew the person who'd come pick me up at 2:15 was my grandma. I planned this all very carefully. School was ending at 2, and that gave me exactly 15 minutes to get back home and surprise my grandma. The moment the bell rang, I ran back home, taking that paved trail that goes through the playground. I was one super excited ball of energy. It'd be my first time going home alone, even just outside alone. I was pretty fucking pumped. That didn't last long though, because as soon as I hit the paved trail, I saw her. She was a tall, lanky old lady with bright blonde dry hair, a super wrinkly face, and completely dead-looking eyes. She was wearing all black and carrying all sorts of colorful shopping bags. Now, I had seen this old woman outside before. My parents talked about how creepy she is and how she's probably methed up 24/7. I saw her and I froze. A feeling of dread took over me as my first super exciting experience of walking home alone got completely fucked by this lady. I froze too late because she spotted me and started to approach. "Hey little girl, do you want some candy? I have the best candy in this town." Her voice was raspy, like someone who spent the vast majority of their life downing Marlboro cig packs. The closer she got to me, the worse I felt. I told her I'm not interested and nonchalantly skipped by her, faster than walking, so I could continue home. "Come on, just try one. You'll like it. You're a very pretty girl. My friends would love you." She kept walking behind me. She was following me. I was terrified. I tried containing myself to not show her I'm scared. I thought it'd make her angry and she'd hurt me. I walked a bit faster and told her again that I'm not interested. She started screaming some nonsense. I ignored her and walked faster. At some point, she stopped screaming. Soon after, I could hear her breathing and felt her fingers on my arm. I instantly noped the fuck out of there, running down the trail crying. As if being touched by that old banshee wasn't terrifying enough, I heard her running after me. As I turned my head to see where she is, this sack of old bones was legit sprinting behind me, as far as her old lady legs could carry her. Imagine seeing an old, creepy-looking, dressed-in-black lady running after you. It was such a frightening sight for a 6-year-old me. After running for what seemed like forever, I finally got to the playground. The old witch was just around 10 meters behind me. At the playground, I saw my grandma on her way to the school to pick me up. She was pretty shocked to see me, obviously, but mostly because I was hysterically crying. I pointed at the old lady, who was now trying to make it seem as if she was lightly jogging, and told my grandma about the candy and the chasing. My grandma is a very non-confrontational person and is easily scared, so her only reply to the old lady was, she just gets so emotional and overly excited at things. Greeted her with goodbye and took me home. The old lady just stood there as we walked away, waving at me and staring at me, smiling a creepy, meth-teeth smile. That was my first encounter with her. The other times I saw her outside were when I went somewhere with my parents. She always stared at me, waved, and smiled. Fast forward to my 15-year-old self. I am chilling at my grandma's in the same neighborhood. My parents and I moved to a far better neighborhood when I was 12, and I was coming by my grandma's house every day for music theory lessons. Grandma used to be some sort of big pianist in the old Soviet Russia. Someone knocks at the door. Grandma, being the extremely paranoid person she is, bolts it and looks through the peeper hole. Guess who it is? Ye old meth banshee. Grandma proceeded to ask for her intentions through the door. Ye old meth banshee claimed she couldn't hear her well through the door and to open it, now knocking a tad more furiously. My grandpa was sleeping at the time, and waking him was something neither of us wanted. He suffered a stroke and needed long hours of sleep. So she opened the door, just as far as the chains on the bolt would let her. Creepy old lady pokes her face through the door, offering to sell us some motherfucking eggs. We're both already thoroughly spooked by this woman, and so kind of rejected her offer of eggs. The decrepit cunt wouldn't let us off the hook so easily, though. She shoved her foot in between the door and the frame and didn't let my grandma close the door. We were both absolutely horrified as she turned to me and said, "You're that pretty girl. Can I buy eggs from you?" We were in complete fucking shock. The woman tried pushing the door open, but she was no match for the chains. She started fumbling at them with her disgusting bony hands. She shoved her hands inside our apartment and tried to pry open the chain. Grandma told me to call the cops and keep away from the door, but I wasn't having any of that. I kicked Banshee's foot from between the door and the frame and closed the door full force on her fingers. She started screaming and going insane, pounding at the door, yelling how she's gonna get us, how she's gonna send her big scary friends over to burn our place down and do many colorful things to me especially. The door banging continued for several minutes until one scary neighbor we had got out and scared her off. My grandma didn't leave the house for a week after that incident, and got even more paranoid every time I came by. My last close encounter with that creepy woman took place a year ago. I was 20 at the time, driving back to my old shady neighborhood to pick up my grandma for grocery shopping. I parked my car in the dimly lit parking lot and waited for her to come down. Having an instilled by my parents superb paranoia, I always locked my car doors, which proved to be very helpful that night. It was around 9 p.m., very dark. Only one street light was working, and very quiet. I got that weird being watched type of feeling, so I turned off my flamboyant K-pop music and sat there silently, watching. I could make out a lanky, dark figure coming towards my car, and would you know it, it's her again, looking exactly the same as 5 years ago and 14 years ago. Dressed in black, bright blonde hair, same exact shopping bags. She got close to my car and tapped on the window on the passenger's side. "Pretty girl, roll down the window." "Fuck no." I motioned her at no with my head. She then goes to mess with both door handles on that side of the car to try and open them. Fuck me sideways. When her druggy brain processed the fact that the doors were locked, she slowly walked to the other side of my car, my side, dragging her hand on it as she goes. She taps on my window and tells me she needs a ride to the hospital. I tell her no, to which her response is messing with the door handles on this side. I am thoroughly freaked out. I see my grandma behind my clearly friendly meth banshee, coming in the parking lot. She sees what's happening and freezes. I text my grandma to silently approach the car from the other side and quickly get in, while I entertain creepy woman and simultaneously reach to open the passenger door. That she does, and our plan works without a hitch. We're both safe and sound inside the car. Problem was, my trunk isn't locked. It can only be locked manually with a key, and we only bother to do so when the car is parked outside, not when we're driving. Meth Grandma was enraged, yelling at me that I'm rude, going through the "my gang will fuck you up" routine. She stands close to the car and I'm scared of running over her foot. God forbid I have to pay her insurance money. She throws a fit, hitting the car with her bags, looking fucking demented. I notice she keeps her feet really close to the car and is walking to its back, to the trunk. My jaw dropped to the floor as I saw her opening the trunk, slowly and quite literally crawling into it, giggling like a fucking maniac. Boy, did I floor that poor gas pedal because ye old meth banshee fell on her decrepit ass and screamed bloody murder. Me and my grandma also screamed. Our screams were muffled with cheery Korean pop music, which I turned on to try to make myself feel better shortly after that witch was out of our car for good. Creepy meth grandma had a name befitting her creepy nature. Lena. Everyone in the neighborhood knew her as the local creeper. Apparently she was in and out of prison and frequented a mental asylum. She wasn't harmless per se. She was known for some violent fits, but there was no record of her actually hurting someone. The closest thing being making me and all the neighborhood kids quite literally shit our pants. What was and still is the most disturbing feature of Lena is the fact that her image never changes. She always wears the same clothes, looks exactly the same as she did 15 years ago, and even carries the exact same bags. It's like a monster out of a fairy tale. It will always appear the same in your head no matter how much time passed since you read its story. I never saw Lena again ever since our last encounter, but I heard she popped up here and there around town. My feelings towards her are mixed. She terrified me as a kid, but the older I grew, the more I pitied her. She was just an old woman who was, and is, completely batshit insane, off her rocker and probably addicted to several kinds of drugs. Too long, didn't read. Old batshit insane woman traumatizes me for life. Exorcist crawls into my car and learns lesson about gravity.